Cavern of Souls and Pioneer, but the card that prompted Wizards of the Coast R&D to design Cavern of Souls in the first place, Mana Leak, that's just too good for Pioneer. Times sure have changed, but also... Wow, I guess times have changed back. Cavern of Souls and Mana Leak are two cards that will forever be linked in Magic the Gathering lore. Cavern of Souls was originally printed in Avacyn Restored as part of a direct response to the ubiquity of Mana Leak, a card that many Magic the Gathering players were sick and tired of playing against in Standard. What's Standard? Ask your parents. Mana Leak was an incredibly difficult card to play around, as it almost always countered any spell for the first 6 or so turns of a game, and even later in the game could sometimes find a target versus Curve Toppers or the second spell a player casts in a turn. Cavern of Souls, however, was an overcorrection, an exceedingly frustrating card to play against from the other direction. Suddenly, the likes of Primeval Titan and Grave Titan were impossible to counter, completely blanking blue interaction. As creatures have gotten stronger and stronger, with more and more value packed into their enters the battlefield effects, the consequences for not being able to interact on the stack have gotten steeper. Which is why, when Cavern of Souls was reprinted in Lost Caverns of Ixalan, blue mages were so frustrated. If Mana Leak was too good for Standard, why was Cavern of Souls necessary? As it turns out, Wizards of the Coast doesn't think Mana Leak is too strong for Standard anymore. Well, basically Mana Leak. Mana Leak at home, if your home is the Azurius Senate. The actual card that's been previewed in Murders of Karlov Manor is called No More Lies, a 2-mana instant that says counter target spell unless its controller pays 3 generic mana. Unlike Mana Leak, though, No More Lies has a more restrictive cost, requiring both a blue and a white mana. In exchange for this restriction, the card also has some upside that Mana Leak doesn't. If the spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it in the graveyard. Okay, so this card is a doozy. I gotta hand it to Wizards of the Coast here. Mana Leak is likely too good for a modern-day Standard set, but this card isn't Mana Leak. Don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic card, and is absolutely going to be important for Pioneer Azurius Control, a deck that has always been a good 2-mana counterspell away from being a Tier 1 strategy in the format. But by making it cost blue-white instead of 1 and a blue, Wizards R&D have neutered one of the primary aspects of Mana Leak that made the card too good. They've cut back on its ubiquity. Not every blue deck can run No More Lies. In fact, Azurius-based decks are the only decks that can run it. If they'd reprinted actual, factual Mana Leak, every blue deck in Pioneer would run 4 copies of the card, and there'd be no escape for anyone. What's more, by giving the counterspell the Exile clause, they balance out the downside of the mana cost. The card is more restrictive and more powerful. Exiling the spell you counter isn't exactly a game changer, but it is absolutely upside against flashback spells like Storm the Festival and Galvanic Iteration, creatures that come back from the yard like Kroxa, or a hard-cast Arclight Phoenix, or even a deck like Amalia combo that's built around setting up a return to the ranks. No More Lies is an absolute powerhouse, and for better or for worse, Azurius Control is finally, say it with me now, back on the menu in Pioneer. So yes, No More Lies, or not quite Mana Leak, is indeed the best new card for Pioneer from Murders at Karlov Manor, but there's actually a lot of spice in this set and a lot of new cards that are going to see play in the format. I've compiled a list of the top 5 cards that are not new Mana Leak, but are strong enough to have an impact on the format. There are even 2 cards on this list that are key components to a pair of brand new infinite combos. Let's jump right in. But first, if you've watched my channel for some time, you know one thing I enjoy is dressing in these fun outfits and both looking and feeling fine. 2 things that mix great are comfort and style after all, but it isn't just what you wear on the outside, it's about what you wear underneath. That's right, today's video is brought to you by Meundies, which I hope you'll try out because they might just be some of the most comfortable underwear and loungewear you've ever worn. This Valentine's Day, good things come in big packages at Meundies. Get 20% off of your first order, plus free shipping at meundies.com/TalarianCommunity. From all black classics to fun expressive prints, Meundies has a look for everyone. And like I said, Valentine's Day is coming up, so check out their super sexy new V-Day prints, like electric hearts or lovebirds. Meundies comes in sizes extra small to extra, 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 extra large, guaranteeing a flattering cut for everybody and everybody. But Meundies isn't just about underwear. I've actually gotten into their extensive loungewear catalog. That's right, loungewear. Treat yourself to their extensive collection of joggers, hoodies, I love those, onesies, and more. Best of all, Meundies is responsibly sourced. They use sustainably sourced materials and work with partners that care for their workers. And if you're not happy with your first pair of undies, it's on Meundies. So you can pick up your first pair without any worry. Relax with Meundies. So remember, this Valentine's Day, good things come in big packages at Meundies. Get 20% off of your first order, plus free shipping at meundies.com/Tolarian Community. Thank you, Meundies, for sponsoring this video. So number 5 on our list is the first of 2 brand new Wombo Z-Combo enablers about to enter the Pioneer format. For this list, I'm starting it off with Chalk Outline, a 4-mana enchantment that makes infinite detectives as though it were pilot season for network TV. Do you get it? Because it's like, they're doing all the new police procedurals. It's 8 new Law & Order shows, right? They still do that, right? You kids know what Law & Order is, right? Anyway, Chalk Outline is an enchantment for 3 generic and a green mana. Whenever 1 or more creature cards leave your graveyard, create a 2/2 blue and white detective creature token, then investigate. Alright, so whenever a creature leaves a graveyard, you get a 2/2 and a clue. A 2/2 and a clue? A 2/2 and a clue! How do we break this card? Well, here's a clue for ya. It's all about the clue. Have you ever heard of Oval Chase Daredevil? A little unassuming 4-mana 4/2 from Aether Revolt that you can return to your hand from the graveyard whenever an artifact enters play. If you have an Oval Chase Daredevil in your graveyard, then every time you make a clue token, the Daredevil triggers. If you return the Daredevil to your hand, you'll trigger Chalk Outline to make another 2/2 and a clue. If you have a way to discard the Daredevil in response to the Chalk Outline trigger, then you can do this infinite times, making infinite 2/2s and infinite clues. Be careful though, infinite clues sounds like someone falling down a conspiracy theory rabbit hole. You don't want to end up like Charlie from TV's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. You know, the meme from that scene? I'm hip, kids. The reason I have this card at the bottom of our list is that there currently aren't many ways to discard a card at will in Pioneer, and especially not at a reasonable mana value. But that said, there are still a few. Olivia's Dragoon and Noose Constrictor both work, though the latter is better because this combo also gives you infinite power and toughness for your snake. A variety of white cards can do it, like Seasoned Hallowblade and Guardian of New Benalia. The best option, though, is Lotleth Troll. This guy also gets infinite power and toughness, and has the added bonus of having Trample and regenerating for a single black mana. If this combo is viable in Pioneer, it likely plays Lotleth Troll. You can play 8 copies of the 1-mana Elves, which both accelerate you to the expensive enchantment and pitch to your troll in a pinch. Smuggler's Copter provides you with card selection and a nice clock in the air. You can even pitch your Oval Chase Daredevils to your Copter and get them back later, generating card advantage. Plus, as a black deck, you have access to all the best interactive spells in the format, like Fatal Push and Thought Seize. So come on, the deck just builds itself. Next up we have...
Oh, it's Lightning Helix! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Lightning Helix, for those who don't know, is one of the simplest, most elegant cards ever designed. An instant for 1 red and 1 white mana that is basically what would happen if you fused Lightning Bolt with its white counterpart Healing Salve. Deal 3 damage to any target and gain 3 life. I actually advocated for this exact reprint for Pioneer a little over a year ago, where I made the exact same joke, by the way. Oh, it's Lightning Helix! Oh my god!
Oh, it's Lightning Helix! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Clearly, Wizards of the Coast watches my videos and takes design notes from them, right? right? The greatest minds in R&D didn't just independently come to the same conclusion that I did. That would be alarming. Sorry, I can never resist doing that. But yes, unlike Mana Leak, which did not actually get a literal reprint in Murders at Markov Manor, literal Lightning Helix actually did. Regardless of what inspired the choice to reprint Lightning Helix, this reprint is a welcome one. I said in the reprints video that Lightning Helix is the perfect power level for an interactive spell in Pioneer. Good both in and against aggressive decks, Lightning Helix provides a little something for everyone, provided you can cast it. You see, Pioneer mana bases are such that you can't easily splash a card like Lightning Helix in something like an Azorius-controlled deck, especially once the deck is trying to cast No More Lies on turn 2. That said, that doesn't mean that Lightning Helix will only see play in an aggressive Boros strategy. The card is highly flexible and strong enough of a removal spell that it could even form the backbone of a Boros mid-range deck. There are also some 5-color decks that could want to play this card either in the main deck or as a sideboard card against aggro. 5-color Niv to Light is a strategy that has fallen out of favor recently, but the deck is a natural home for Lightning Helix, and may see a resurgence if the card is strong enough. Similarly, 5-color Enigmatic Fires and the non-Niv 5-color Bring to Light mid-range decks both would appreciate the removal/life gain hybrid to help take some pressure off their Triome plus Shockland mana bases. It's also certainly possible that Azorius Control does splash red for Lightning Helix. After all, they did something similar in Historic when Lightning Helix was printed in Strixhaven's Mystical Archives. It is not obvious precisely where Lightning Helix will see play, but it is definitely clear that the card will make an impact somewhere. It's just too good not to. Number 3 on our list is another combo card, Crime Novelist. Crime Novelist is a 1/3 Goblin Bard for 2 generic and a red mana. Crime Novelist, aside from writing some of Ravnica's greatest detective hits like The Talented Mr. Lazov and Murder on the Izzet Express, also has a triggered ability. Whenever you sacrifice an artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on Crime Novelist and add a red mana. This prolific writer goes infinite with Animation Module, provided you have a sack outlet that can eat either artifacts or creatures, and a spare artifact or creature to sacrifice already lying around. Sacrifice this spare fodder to your sack outlet, triggering Crime Novelist. Put a +1/+1 counter on the Novelist and add a red mana. This will trigger Animation Module. Use the red mana from the Novelist to pay for Module, creating a servo artifact creature token. Sacrifice that servo to your sack outlet, triggering Novelist, and congratulations! You've now demonstrated a loop. Great job! This combo gives you infinite power and toughness on the Novelist and infinite sacrifice triggers if you have something like a Mayhem Devil in play. The combo requires more moving pieces than Chalk Outline does, but this combo's pieces are also generally cheaper, since Animation Module only costs 1 mana. What's more, your backup plan is fairly cohesive, as Animation Module is just a nice value card in its own right. If you have enough +1/+1 counter synergies in your deck already, you can use any spare mana you happen to have to generate additional 1/1s. Speaking of +1/+1 counters, there's a great sacrifice split in Lost Caverns of Ixalan that gives itself +1/+1 counters. Bartolomé del Presidio. Now, it might be challenging to use this card as your combo sack outlet, since adding a 3rd color is tough, but if you do, you'll be rewarded with a lightning-fast, low-to-the-ground aggro deck. Who knows, maybe this combo melds with the traditional Rakdos sacrifice deck, giving the deck a way to goldfish an instant win in linear matchups where you need to kill your opponent as fast as possible before they can assemble their own combo. It's also possible that this particular combo waits in the wings for the next couple of sets until a better sacrifice enabler comes around. But either way, Crime Novelist is a fantastic card and should certainly be on your radar in Pioneer. Fun fact, according to Kathleen DeVere, who wrote the flavor text for this card, this is Nogrina Jantax writing a portion of her mega bestseller, The High Window, to fall out of. Although critics have said her stories lack subtlety, Jantax makes up for it with extra helpings of sex and violence, which unfortunately for critics, most readers prefer. Alright, so what are the top 2 best new cards for Pioneer that are not Azorius Mana Leak? Well, number 2 on this list is one that is a fan favorite that finally got reprinted into the format. Sort of. Let's take a look. Number 2 on our list is Thraen Inspector, who must have come to Ravnica via the Omen Paths. You remember the Omen Paths, right? The giant narrative change that's been used really well after being declared a huge shakeup to the foundation of Magic the Gathering? Well, here via them is Thraen Inspector herself, who, wait a minute, we already have Thraen Inspector in Pioneer, and it's a really good card. I guess that means number 2 is, oh, I see my mistake. Number 2 is actually Novelist Inspector, a near literal reprint of Thraen Inspector that's just been renamed. Novice Inspector is a 1/2 human detective creature for a single white mana. When it enters the battlefield, investigate. Sound familiar? Why is this card so high on our list? Well, it now means you can have up to 8 Thraen Inspectors in your deck. This is a huge deal for one deck in particular, Boros Convoke. Previously, the Convoke deck played 8 1-mana creatures that make an artifact token when they enter play that you can sacrifice to Gleeful Demolition or tap to Warden of the Inner Sky. But in most cases, one of these, Thraen Inspector, is a lot better than the other one, Voldaren Epicure. Novice Inspector is therefore a huge upgrade to Epicure, though it's entirely possible that this deck might actually want a full 12 copies of 1-mana creatures now that Novice Inspector is legal in Pioneer. Either way, getting to play 8 Inspectors is a big deal for Boros Convoke, a deck with a lightning-fast start, but also the need to be able to grind out a long game if you can't kill your opponent by turn 4. The Inspectors are integral to that plan, giving you both a body and a fresh card for minimal mana investment. These Inspectors also make Warden of the Inner Sky, already one of the best cards in the deck, even better, as you're even more likely to have spare game pieces to tap your Warden. There's an argument that Novice Inspector could be number 1 on the list, were it not for a truly fantastic new card advantage engine that is going to have a big impact on the Pioneer format. So what is the number 1 best new card from Murders at Markov Manor for Pioneer? Well, it's No More Lies. We established that at the beginning of the video. But what is the number 1 best new card for Pioneer from Murders at Karlov Manor that is not No More Lies? Well, the number 1 new best card for Pioneer, not named Mana Leak or No More Lies, is Assemble the Players. Assemble the Players is an enchantment for 1 generic and 1 white mana. Assemble has the "you may look at the top card of your library at any time" clause, because the card also says, once per turn you may cast a creature with power 2 or less from the top of your library. Don't get discouraged by the once per turn part of that sentence. You should be thankful it says that, because otherwise this card would get out of hand very fast. The thing about creatures with power 2 or less is that they get better the more of them you have. As you might imagine, Assemble is very good at making it so that you have more of them. At the very least, this card would be a great sideboard card in any white-based aggressive deck that wants to beat Rakdos midrange. But I wouldn't be surprised if it even saw main deck play in a few key strategies. The first most obvious home for the card is in the Amalia combo deck. This deck plays a staggering number of creatures that meet Assemble's criteria. Both halves of the combo, Amalia and Wildgrowth Walker, can be cast off of Assemble, as can all the Soul Warden effects, the Mana Dorks, and even the grindy pivot cards in Voice of Resurgence. Key sideboard cards like Deep Cavern Bat, Knight of Dusk's Shadow, and Skyclave Apparition can also be cast off of Assemble. But what about other white decks? Well, Mono White Humans certainly has a wide array of cards it can cast off of this card, from 1-mana creatures like Recruitment Officer, all the way up the curve to Brutal Cathar. Bant Spirits also plays roughly 1 billion creatures that meet this criteria, and can really abuse the once per turn clause by casting flash threats on your opponent's turns. Imagine spell quelling an opponent's creature from the top of your library. Ooh, I just got chills. Speaking of spell queller and flash threats in general, what if we built a whole deck around this card? It would have a lot of flash creatures like Spectral Sailor, Fairy Mastermind, and Malcolm Alluring Scoundrel, so you'll always have something you can cast on either your turn or your opponent's. Spell Queller and Were Fox Bodyguard are fantastic interactive spells on sticks. You can even play some efficient interaction that isn't attached to creatures, like Get Lost and, oh, of course, No More Lies. Imagine the potential with Assemble the Players. You can now be everyone's least favorite player at your Pioneer Friday Night Magic. Assemble the Players is the kind of card that's so exciting in preview season. Not only is it likely to slot into existing Pioneer archetypes, but this kind of efficient card advantage engine could form the foundation of a totally new deck. And I, for one, cannot wait to see how players innovate with this sweet new card. So there you have it, the best new cards from Murders at Murktide Manor that are not No More Lies. But now I want to hear from you. Do you agree with my list? Disagree? What cards from Murders at Markov Manor are you most excited to play in Pioneer? Let me know in the comments below. Hey, thanks again to Meundies for sponsoring this video. Meundies offers cool, comfortable, and super stylish underwear and loungewear. Perfect not just for you, but with Valentine's Day coming up, a cool gift idea for that special someone. Meundies' signature fabric is breathable, stretchy, and oh so comfy, making it ideal all-day wear. Plus, if you're not happy with your first pair of Meundies, it's on Meundies, so you can pick up your first pair without any worry. Relax with Meundies. Remember, this Valentine's Day, things come in big packages at Meundies. Get 20% off of your first order, plus free shipping at meundies.com/Tolarian Community.
Next time on Shuffle Up and Play.
Unknown Commander. Gavin, I don't know what this is. This is your event?
So I design about 60 or so playtest cards for each one of these. People have never seen before.
What makes a card a playtest card?
They look like this.
Hi everybody, I'm Rachel Weeks. I'm playing the Colossal Dreadmaw.
Hi, my name is George. I am going to be playing Polis, the Planeshifter.
I want to have the honor of playing the first playtest card of the game.
All right.
Wow,
And it's
so fast.
Command Power Plants.
What is that?
Prof's gonna love this one.
Oh no. So George,
Okay.
look at my thing and I want to
Va.
attack you. I'm not scared of the Roman.
Oh, you
Why
should
not?
No,
You should be.
I choose a plane at random.
All right.
There is Immerstorm.
Yeah! You have 7 floating green mana from
Yeah,
that?
and you know what I'm gonna do with it, Prof?
I'm gonna cast a Colossal
Cast a
Dreadmore.
Foundation
Oh.
Breaker.
Wow.
I mean, a Colossal Dreadmaw.
I'll say that there's not a lot of balance and rigor put into these unknown playtest
Okay,
cards.
there's no tutors.